So here for this IC, as you can see here, we have the TPS 51120. So this IC, as you see, U6 is the 3 volt, 5 volt power management IC. This IC with this two MOSFETs generate the 5 volt, and also this IC with this two MOSFET generates in the other side 3 volts. Okay, so as you can see here in the motherboard, okay, this is this IC, the TPS 51120 is this, exactly is this. As you can see, we have here the TPS 51120. So this is the 3 volt, 5 volt IC, and here as you see we have the coils, as you see the 3 volt and 5 volt coils with capacitor, its capacitor, and also MOSFETs. Okay, we have here two MOSFETs, and here we have two MOSFETs. Two MOSFETs for with this coil to generate 3 volt, and two MOSFETs with this coil and with this capacitor to generate 5 volts. Okay, the same as we have here. So we have here the IC. Okay, we have here two MOSFETs, as you can see. We have here one coil, as you can see, and we have here the chemical capacitor, the filtering capacitor, and here we will get 5 volt. Okay, so as you can see here, the MOSFET, we have some pins here that we should know in this MOSFET. Okay, so here we have, this is enable 5 volt, but this enable 5 volt is not connected. Also enable 3 volt is not connected in this IC. The power go to also is not connected. We have here the power or the enable 2. Okay, we have the V boost 2. We have the drive high and drive low. This drive high and drive low is control these two MOSFETs in order to generate 3 volts. As you can see, we have here the control signals. So here this is the high MOSFET and the lower MOSFET. So drive high signal will control, as you can see, the gate of this MOSFET, and for the drive low, as you can see, or here the drive low 2 is controlled the gate of this MOSFET. And then we have here a coil, as you can see. Okay, and then we have here capacitor, as you can see, with 320 microfarads, and here and 5 volt, of course. And here we have a pad. This pad, this is like a test point where you can check the presence of 3 volt or not. And here we have the 3 volt. Okay, the same working principle for the 5 volt, as you can see here. So here in this side also we have here the drive high one that controls, as you can see, the drive high one, as you can see, controls this MOSFET, as you see, in each gate. Okay, and of course here we have the VBAT. Always the VBAT, we have here 19 volts. Okay, this 19 volt will pass through these capacitors. This is a ceramic capacitors or chemical or PF capacitors. This is its references in the motherboard, C1046 and C1047. Okay, then the 19 volt will pass through this MOSFET when it is activated by this control signal, the drive high. Okay, and also for this MOSFET we have in its gate the drive low. As you see, drive low 1 will control this MOSFET. And of course always the second or the lower MOSFET is connected to the ground. Why always we find the second MOSFET connected to the ground? In order to protect the IC or the circuit. Okay, because if there is a high voltage, this IC will be opened, and then the additional voltage will pass through this MOSFET to the ground. Okay, and here of course we have a coil, as you can see here, L3, and then we have here a chemical capacitor, as you see, C21. Okay, it's reference, and also another ceramic capacitor, C22, and then we have a pad here. You can check in this pad. You will find this pad, as you see, power pad in the motherboard, to check the presence of 5 volt or not. I will show you this pad. As you can see here in the motherboard, always you will find next, as you see, always next to this capacitor, chemical capacitor, always the pad is connected to the chemical capacitor and to the coil. As you can see here in the motherboard, I will show you here many pads, as you can see. So here we have a pad here, as you can see here. This is pad, kind of pad, near to this coil. We have here another pad. This is the pad 2. So near to the 3 volt, as you can see here. Do you see here? We have 3 volt. After the coil and the capacitor, the chemical capacitor, we have the pad. Here you can check the presence of 3 volt or not, as you can see here. Okay, so this is the coil, the 3 volt coil, and this capacitor, and this is the pad. Okay, so as you see, we have here coil and chemical capacitors, and also PF capacitors, and we have the pad. As you see, we have coil, chemical capacitor, and PF capacitor, and here we have the pad. Here you should check if whether the 3 volt is present or not. Okay, the same for 5 volts. Okay,